So I think what we're going to do from here is head into a more foresty area using this. And like I said, I just kind of want to make this be like a side path thing. And then my idea is that it's going to connect into like a bigger road area. And then from there, we'll be able to build out a little bit more interesting stuff happening. So let's see. So I think from here, we'll just go back to the event mode. Actually, before we do that, let's make ourselves a new map. Come back over here and we'll go to new. And I think for this particular map, I'm going to make the height a little bit bigger than just 13 because I want it to kind of seem like you have to walk up a good bit. So I'm going to actually double the height on that to 26. We can leave the width the same. That's okay for what I have in mind here. And again, we're going to be using the outside tile set. And I think the rest will be okay, leaving as it is for now. So we'll hit OK. And now we can see here in the editor, we've got a lot more room to work with vertically in this space here. I'll just zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole map. Yeah, so they'll come in, wherever, probably about here. I think in the middle would be fine. And then you've got a lot more room to move up. So that's my goal here for this particular map. So let's go ahead and start this one in the map by kind of just roughly defining the enclosed space, because this is using this forest part again, remember? So my vision for this particular area here is to kind of have it be a pretty tight spot. Like there's not going to be a ton of room to move around. So what we're going to want to do with that is just box everything in really good with this. And if you make little mistakes like that, it's okay. You can either use the undo button, or sometimes when you do things like that, it might prompt you to build it out a little bit more and say, okay, this is where there's going to be a, extra little tree going on right there, or, whatever. So sometimes little mistakes like that, nervous twitches in your hand or whatever ends up happening can actually work out in your favor. But what I'm going to do here is just kind of box the player in entirely around these trees. And to do that, all you really need to do is use this upper tile and then make sure you're connecting it to all the edges of the map. However you want to do it. I'm going to have the ending area probably right about there. That looks probably pretty good. So when we just go ahead and fill in around the edges, and that gives us kind of like a framework to work within. And then of course you can always add to it or, modify it as you go. So, and I'm actually going to want this to come in quite a bit, I think. So let's try, let's try going something like this maybe. I'm just trying to block in like a general path that I have in mind. So from here, I can imagine it kind of going back out a little bit. And then maybe one more part where it kind of comes across like this. Seems pretty good. Now we might gotta run into an issue here. Because see, if we make the tree the same height as usual, then there's no space for the player to walk. So you gotta kind of be careful with some of that. So I'm actually gonna undo and draw this down even further. That way it gives the player at least one tile to, walk on and all that. So, okay, that looks pretty good, I think, for now. And we'll just fill this part in. Maybe make it a little less square so it's a little more visually pleasing to look at. Go ahead and all I'm doing here is just adding the transparency tiles back in, and that's pretty much the equivalent of erasing some spots and giving us something a little more interesting to work with here. So this one again is going to cause problems. So I'm going to head and erase that so this is as far up as we can go with that if we want it to be 2 tiles high for our trees and things. So got to be careful with that one. And what you can do ahead of time is just kind of block these in so that like, okay, instead of having to do the guesswork, then you can see, okay, I need one spot for the player to be able to move, and things like that. So, okay, so I think that's a pretty good rough guide here. So let's do maybe block in some of this over here. And all I'm really trying to do with this is make like a path for the player to walk through, but also I want it to be kind of interesting to look at. So the other way we can do it more quickly, of course, is to use our flood fill tool. And if we know we just want to block this in, we can just do it like that, and it comes across. One other thing you may want to watch is like this here, because there's not the full two spots that I've decided on for the height of these trees. It would just make a small one here, and it would maybe look a little different. Like, let's see. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. Undo that. Still had the flood fill tool on. So yeah, see, so it just makes a short one, and maybe that's not what you wanted, so you gotta push it up one more, and then that gives you the impression that it's, the full taller trees and things like that. So you can just kind of go in here and block these all in, and then you can see how the path is starting to form for the, for the player to walk through. You can do it like this, a little bit at a time. Anywhere where, it's gonna come straight down. We got to put that in there so you've got the tree, just like with the cliffs. It was the same sort of thing, so that you didn't miss any spots. The other thing you can do, well, it doesn't really matter for this part, I guess, but I was going to say what you can do is kind of like block in the bottom and then just do a flood fill on the top. But since we have the varying heights, it doesn't really work as easily. You might as well just do it this way that we're already doing it, because it's probably going to end up faster. So I think, and we can go back in here and add a little bit more detail and things like that. I'm going to make this one come out here a little bit so it looks a little nicer, maybe. I also don't like how flat that is, so we can just kind of do this sort of thing with it. Maybe add a little bit more here that we didn't have before. And so this is generally what you'll do when you're making your maps. You'll have these moments for inspiration, or, where you'll change your mind, or you'll think about something that you think is going to work, and then maybe it doesn't work like you thought it was going to at first, or, and you'll just go through and add things and take them away and undo and all that. So here we can see this is kind of coming together a little bit better, taking shape a little better here. And you can also do something like this too if you want. We haven't done that yet really, but you can do a little isolated part. Like, actually, maybe it might look even better to just do something like that, like it's a little tree. I'm actually move that down one more. Oops, one more down, and then we'll get this. So you can do something like that if you want. It's just a sort of gives the impression of maybe like a shorter one, or else, something to be in the middle, so that it's something that just gives a little bit of variety, so the player isn't just walking like straight lines. They can, here they can still walk through it, obviously, but they might want to walk over here, or, whatever. Obviously, you can design your map a little more carefully than I have here to make it so they actually are forced to walk around this, and that would make it more interesting. But for now, one way we could just quickly do that is just kind of do this sort of thing, and then, enclose it in like that. But then, I'm just going to leave it like this. I think that's okay. It just gives the player something else to look at. So I think that's pretty good for the general layout of this map here. And you can see, like, we could have just made it straight, like walk here, go straight, up to the top. But by doing something like this, instead, it makes it a little bit, oops, thought I was on the other tile still. There we go. By making it something like this instead, it makes it a little more interesting for the player to navigate through it. It's not just plain old straight lines, and because I wanted this to be kind of like a off the beaten path kind of thing, so to me it makes more sense to have it be maybe not straight necessarily. You don't have to make it quite so S curved as I did here either. You could have just done it like, straight here, and then have it just come like a little bit to the side and then go straight down, and that would have been good too. Just something to add a little bit of variety there to the overall path that they're actually walking. So, but I think we're okay just having it like this.